Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you all the books I ended up reading in September and those that I plan on reading in October. So I feel like I'm finally out of my reading slump. I feel very happy about that. I read a total of 4 books, which is more than I read in July and August combined. So I feel very happy about that, but it's nice to be kind of back into a reading routine and kind of just enjoying reading now. I think it helps that I haven't been traveling. I'm just kind of settled now, so into my routine, which makes it helpful. And these books were kind of all over in terms of genre, and I really enjoyed all of them, which is always fun. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, I have The Lost Girls of Willowbrook by Marie Wiseman. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I have a reading vlog dedicated to this when I was kind of reading the tail end of it, but it was really good. It took me by surprise. Usually this author does a lot of historical fiction, so I was kind of expecting that, but this ended up being like a historical fiction thriller. So we follow Sage, who just found out that her twin sister, who she thought passed away 7 years ago from pneumonia, is actually alive, and she was sent to the Willowbrook State School, which was an institution for people with mental disabilities or mental illness were sent to on Staten Island during the 70s. So she goes and offers to, because her sister has gone missing, so she decides to go to the institution to help find her sister, but they end up mistaking her for her sister Rosemary, and she gets kind of, basically pulled in as a patient. But while there's like a string of murders taking place that somehow kind of ends up being intertwined. This book was very difficult to read, and I think I would have read more books had it not been for this one, because I had to read it in small doses. The author does not sugarcoat from the terrible conditions that these people had to live in, and just the total neglect and discard for like a human life that was basically the hallmark of these institutions. It was really hard to kind of read, and I had to take it in small doses because of that. And then in addition as well, the second half of the book was just super suspenseful, and it was just, like I said, it took me by surprise. I was expecting historical fiction, and it ended up being kind of a historical fiction with like a murder mystery / thriller vibe, and it just gave me a lot of anxiety reading it. But that's how you know the book is good, when you get such a big response like that. So like I said, I really enjoyed this. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did think there were some pacing issues in the beginning, but it definitely picks up, and I could not put, I think I read like the last like 200 pages in like one day. I could not put it down. That's how good this was. So if you're looking for something different, I highly recommend you check this one out. Completely missed that when I was pointing. But yeah, this book was fantastic. Next, I wanted kind of like a short story, and this is one that I read before, and kind of reading it, I just realized there was like a few extra like chapters added to it, and it is Morrighan by Pearson. This is kind of basically the prequel or origin story to the Remnant Chronicles world, and a lot of like the kind of stories and folklore surround the main character Morrighan. I don't want to give too much away, because I feel like it is very much kind of a foundation point within the Remnant Chronicles. I read that series when it first came out, and now it's kind of gained a resurgence, hence why this book was kind of published as like a special edition. But it was fun. I liked it. It did have like some pictures intermixed within it, but it was a quick read. Like I read it within a day, and yeah, it was fine. It was 3 stars. I enjoyed it, but like I feel like because it is a novella, you can't really get to really know the characters. You don't get to spend a lot of time with them, so that's just like my only thing. But I think if you like the Remnant Chronicles, I think this would provide more kind of background to that world. So yeah, if you like that, I think this would be fine. But like I said, I just gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was fine. Next up, I was feeling like more of a murder mystery this month, and so just because I do read those pretty quickly. So next up, I read What She Found by Dugoni. This is the newest installment in the Tracy Crosswhite series, and this follows Tracy, who is a former homicide detective from the Seattle Police Department, but now she primarily focuses on cold cases, and she's approached by this woman whose mother disappeared, I want to say like 25 years ago, and it kind of goes off from there. This one I really enjoyed. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I think now that the series has kind of shifted focus from like current murder investigations to kind of cold cases, I think adds a kind of interesting perspective and kind of makes a different twist on like a very formulaic murder mysteries, especially being a cold case that you kind of lose a lot of the evidence to time, and seeing Tracy kind of tackle that was really a lot of fun. So this one was like super suspenseful. I'm trying to figure it out with Tracy, and so it does a good job at keeping you on your toes. And if you're looking for something like a fun murder mystery series to start, I think this one's good. I think this is book 8 or so, but they always end up being super suspenseful. It really builds to like a very big climax at the end, and that always makes it fun and thrilling. But yeah, I think these are really well done, and I think the cold case aspect really kind of gets you thinking and trying to piece together clues that have either been lost to time or people who passed away that are like witnesses and all this stuff. So it was very fun. I was able to kind of figure out the main kind of scheme behind everything, but it was still fun trying to piece together and kind of what little threads you kind of get and evidence you kind of pick up with Tracy. So I always think that's really fun to do. So like I said, gave this one a 4 to 5 stars. Next up, I read The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. I got the book from the library, and this is a new installment in the Thursday Murder Club series, and this series is really unique, and I think it really takes the kind of murder mystery like tropes and spins it on its head, and it kind of makes it something that is centered around like a lot of humor and warmth and found family. So if you like those themes, I think this would be a lot of fun. But it follows 4 people who live in a retirement community, and kind of they find ways to insert themselves into murder investigations. In this case, it ended up being a murder of a close friend, and it kind of takes off from there. The series, like I said, it just has a lot of humor, and I really love like the dynamics between the characters, the banter. It did touch on a lot of like tough subject matter with some of the characters in terms of emotional development and kind of sad things there, but it was just really a joy to read, and I was just really happy. I really love this series, and I think in the author's note that he mentioned that there's going to be more books in the series, but there's going to be kind of a little break before the next one comes out. So if you want to try, like, I think if you want to get into murder mysteries or want something a little bit lighthearted, I think this is perfect. It is a really fun cast of characters, and I cannot recommend it enough. And finally, moving on to the books that I plan on reading in October, I first have The Running Grave by Robert Galbraith. This is the new installment in the Cormoran Strike series, and with kind of murder mysteries, I don't really like to know anything about the plot, so this is one I'm going to kind of go into blind, but I saw that it was shipped over the weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to get it in my hands by the end of this week, but that'll be the one I'll be picking up first. And then because we'll be going into October, there'll be a lot of kind of witchy vibes, and so these books kind of have that like witch like themes to them that I was like holding off reading until this time of year. So first up, I have The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and it follows a girl who kind of witches are kind of kept secret, but she ends up taking a position at this home where she is going to be training these young witches and kind of teaching them how to use their powers, but she ends up kind of falling in love with kind of a very grumpy, I want to say, librarian, and it kind of goes off from there. I've heard this is kind of the cozy fantasy like vibes, and I think this would just be fun to read around this time of year, and I haven't really read a romance recently, or an adult romance, in a while, so I think this one will be fun, and I'm always down. I haven't really read a cozy fantasy book yet, so I'm excited for that. Next up, I have The Bone Orchard by Sara E. Mueller, and this is a book that was recommended to me by my fiance. He read this last year and really enjoyed it, but it says, tucked away behind a notorious house of ill repute, there is a garden where the trees are grown from bones and nourished by the darkness of seekers. The clattering, ghastly harvest is tended by the women who live there and work at Orchard House. Charm the madam in her haunting beautiful charges, shame, justice, desire, pride, and pain, except on Tuesdays when the emperor alone calls at Orchard House to see his personal concubine, until the day he summons Charm instead to the palace to charge her with his dying decree. Choose which of his horrible sons will inherit the empire by discovering which one has been responsible for his murder. If she completes this final task, she will be freed from a life of bondage and servitude. Torn between the dead emperor's will and the whispers of her own ghosts, Charm must choose justice for her empire she hates or vengeance at the cost of her own freedom. I think this one sounds interesting, and it says here, Charm is a traitor, a witch, a whore, a prisoner, and a survivor. I just think this sounds really interesting. I think the themes of it sound like there'll be a kind of a feminist vibe to it as well. So it just seems like it'll be a lot of fun, and I feel like this cover is just perfect for kind of Halloween-y vibes. And lastly, I have The Once and Future Witches by Alix Harrow. This is a book that I got last year, towards the end of last year, that I've just been waiting for this time of year to read. So it says, in 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tiding charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it in the ballot box. But when the Eastwood sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amarantha, and Beatrice Belladonna join the suffrages of New Salem, they begin to pursue the forgotten words in ways that might turn the women's movement into a witches' movement. Stalked by shadows and sickness, haunted by forces who will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not even to live, the sisters will need to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bonds between them if they want to survive. I just think this sounds interesting. I think it's really interesting kind of merging kind of old kind of witches vibes in like the 1800s and tie that into the suffragettes movement. I think would just be a lot of fun. And yeah, I've been holding off reading these books for a while, and I was like, yes, now we're at the time where I feel like the autumn vibes fit this, so I'm very excited. So that's it, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you plan on reading this month and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.